It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Pretty simple. I saw a number today, eye-popping. The number $312 billion. That is the amount that the top 25 richest families in this country have seen their wealth increase over the last 12 months. That's an annual gain of 22%. They've seen a nice little bit of change thanks to the pandemic. Disaster capitalism never doing better. And it's one of these things that I got to tell you, it's angering and it's frustrating when you hear the front groups that they fund saying, you know, we can't do anything. We cannot possibly build better roads, bridges. We can't possibly invest in the future. We can't help kids get a start at the beginning of their academic career with universal pre-K. Can't help them get college educated. We can't do any of this stuff. Sorry. Can't do it because we're broke. And we have a political party and a half, or maybe not a whole half, a political party solely, and then a couple still left on the other side who are saying, no, we can't really raise taxes on the wealthy because they're the job creators. Even we know that that's not reality. And what's really frustrating to me is I look at that $312 billion number just in 12 months. That's what they've increased their wealth in just the last year. That's not the nearly $2 trillion that our billionaire class has put into their pocket. That's just the top 25. That's a reasonable sized bus. And you go, but Rick, they're the captains of industry. Without them, we would all be standing around looking at each other. Is that so? And what do these folks do? What do they do with their fortunes? They could be building legacies. They could be solving problems. They could make this truly the greatest place on earth. But no, we have to put up with them shooting phallic rockets into the sky and then thanking us for paying for it. We get to see their obsesses. We get to see their insane lifestyles while the rest of the folks here are struggling to put food on the table, worried about their children. Are they going to get sick in school? Being forced back into workplaces that could be dangerous. But you know what they do with their money better than anyone else? They fund euphemistically named front groups that their sole purpose is to divide and conquer we the people. You know, they're spending tons of money on what is right now a well-coordinated attack because they're starting to see that working people have had enough of it. They're starting to see the rumblings of working people who are overworked, underpaid, undervalued, mistreated. And there's no way that they can get them back with the old tools. So what they're doing is they're going back to the good old days of divide and conquer. We got to give people something else to be angry about. Because here's the thing, we're in the middle of what's being dubbed as the great resignation because people are tired of being mistreated at work. And there's another ghosting is now something new where someone will take a job and they don't show up. Because maybe they found a better job or maybe they just had a bad feeling about the one that they took and said, yeah, what, I changed my mind. Either way, not good signs for our employment class who have been used to desperate, pliable, obedient workers. People who are hungry enough to come to work in crummy conditions for poverty wages and not question too much of it. Just happy to, just happy to have a job. And people are finally having enough of it. And the thing that gets me is instead of creating better jobs, instead of doing what we were told, remember back in Econ 101? Remember how we were told, when we were learning about rice and beans and all of that stuff? Remember how they told us that, if things got bad and the free market, the invisible hand would adjust and things would get better because employers would have to offer more money and better wages and conditions, and things would have to get better if they wanted to attract talent. Well, they're not doing that. Because again, they've conned us into believing, or some of us, those old narratives. But what they've done is they've spent the money that they've gotten, like I said, buying a political party and a half or a political party and a handful. They're buying media everywhere and literally laughing all the way to the bank. $312 billion in the last 12 months that our 25 top families have put into their account. Now, you look at this. How have they divided us? Well, the old ways. Race, gender, sexual orientation. Those have always been the biggies, right? You give somebody something else to look at while they're picking our pockets. And now with so many different ways to attack on those fronts, slicing and dicing and pitting us against each other, let the games begin. And our billionaire funded, euphemistically named front groups are in full spin mode. Every day my email box is full with one group or another with their little particular angle, whether it's race, gender, sexual identity, Martians, whatever their angle is to get into that right-wing pot of cash. That's where they go. Today's was, the soft bigotry of Democrats voting reforms. And I loved that one because I'm going, wait a second. I saw what you did there. You kind of turned that around. Their argument is by making it easier for minorities to vote, you're basically calling them stupid because they can't go over all the hurdles and obstacles that have been put in their way to vote. And it's your fault that you're pointing this out because they should be able to go over these hurdles that other people don't have to go over. So it's soft bigotry pointing out that it's an unequal system. It's brilliant. It's brilliant messaging. And I read it. I read it twice because this is what they do so masterfully. My other favorite today was the underlying racism of infrastructure improvements. Yes, by improving inner cities transportation networks, by creating jobs and refitting our buildings, retro engineering our buildings and all of that, somehow that this is somehow racist. And I couldn't find it in there, but they had to throw it in there, the racism of infrastructure. And, of course, you get the ones from the school choice people who, are you handing your children over to fill in the blank? Whatever boogeyman they want to throw in there, that was there today, too. And really all it's meant to do is keep us pitted against each other, divided and angry at each other, which we're good at being. And then they hit with the main point. Slide it in a little bit, because the one thing they all agree on, regardless of which angle they take, whether it's the homophobia or the misogyny or the racism, or no matter how they came to the dance, they all leave with the same woman or the same man, which is it's the economy. They want workers to have rights. And this is where I go back to what my original thoughts have always been. As someone who grew up in a minority in a minority community, I learned very young that black and white didn't matter as much as green. Because no matter what the color of our skin was, we were all broke. And if we ever decided that we were going to come together and demand that we all got better off, our 25 families who pocketed $312 billion extra dollars on top of what the billions they already had, they wouldn't be sitting on that kind of money. And that would be more equally distributed. You wouldn't have the hunger, you wouldn't have the pain, the misery, the suffering, the struggle that we have for a good majority of our country. Even people who think they're doing okay are still on the treadmill trying not to fall off. hoping that one illness, one accident, one unfortunate circumstance doesn't throw them into chaos. And this pandemic really has highlighted the fact that so many of us are 1-2 paychecks away from disaster. And a lot of folks, because of the moratorium, they were falling behind all along. And you see these rich people, our billionaire class, our captains and titans of industry. You see them, funding away. And it brings me back to something my grandfather always said. If you're going to see a rich guy pull a buck out of his pocket to tell you don't need something, you better spend 2 to get it. If they're spending this kind of coordinated money fighting against Biden's Build Back Better plan, which, again, I think could be better, but it's good. It's a start. It's a push. It's historic. It's, in my view, almost a reset of a lot of the last 40 years conservative attacks, which is why the billionaire class not happy about it. The billionaire class has been spending money for 40, 50 years to get to this point. This is where they want to be. They've got both hands placed firmly on the steering wheel, and they are driving this car right into the ditch where they want it to be. Because they know even after they wreck the car, they're still going to get the insurance money. They're still going to be better off because they've set up a system where heads they win, tails we lose. No matter how it is, they have figured out how to play this game in such a way that, they're insulated. And it got me thinking today. I was having a conversation with a friend today, and we were talking about how we got to this moment. How we've been so easily separated. And, I said, look, my view on it is, you go back to my grandparents' generation, the greatest generation. They fought fascism overseas, and they came home and remained united in the workplace to fight the same kind of tyrannical behavior that you would have seen overseas here at home. And they fought for what was the most prosperous working class in history. Because they understood at the end of the day, while they had many divisions, and they did, a lot of the same ones, and even more deeply ingrained, it was still about wages, hours, conditions. It was still about the jobs. It was still about holding those billionaires in check. It was the militancy of that generation. And the thing is, I used to say, they're not the greatest generation. They just rose to the challenges of the time. They didn't have a choice. They were in a corner. They were backed into the corner. You don't have any choices when you're backed into a corner. You got to fight your way out. But you look at right now, are we rising to the challenges of our time? With, child hunger, just crazy. We've got homeless veterans. We've got a tsunami of people about to be thrown out of their homes. We've got millions of people without jobs. Wages are rising a bit, but nowhere near where they should be. And when people have the audacity to stand up, step forward, and speak out about, hey, we want better, immediately what happens? Well, you look at what happened at Amazon down in Bessemer, Alabama. They brought in the police that they paid off to harass people. They figured out how to get the U.S. Postal Service to bring in a special mailbox that they could monitor. They plastered union hate mail all over the bathroom stalls. They paid people to walk around with sandwich boards on their bodies saying how bad the union is and how vote no and you can do it without dues and all of this nonsense. All the while they knew how the vote was going to turn out. Because they were harassing and intimidating people. Because they have the power and the money and the resource to do it. So when there's a spark of people going, hey, maybe this isn't right. Maybe we should be speaking out against this. Maybe we should say enough is enough. Maybe we should have a great resignation. Maybe we should be ghosting these crummy employers and make them better. Well, they pull out the old bag of tricks. Anything that's going to move us forward, anything that's going to get done for we the people, especially we the working people, has to be crushed and with extreme prejudice. Because that's all they really know, isn't it? And it doesn't matter what the issue is. It's about their winning and, of course, our losing. All under the guise that we're told that if we give them all the money, We cut the taxes, we cut the regulations, we do all this stuff to help them that they're eventually going to take care of us. They're going to be benevolent, like good dictators. Now, a lot of us, we like to believe, no, we're smarter than that. We're a democratic society. But when you look at the polling on a lot of the things in the Build Back Better plan, rural access to decent internet, good roads, bridges, a couple extra years of schooling for kids to get an associate's degree through a community college, these are polling really popular. The jobs that would come out of massive investment in infrastructure, the jobs that would come out of moving towards a cleaner, greener economy. Popular as can be, and that's why they don't happen. Because they're popular with we, the working people, not the billionaires who are stuck in the entrenched interests. They're the folks who are making profit off of the old economy, the exploitive economy. And I'm looking at this moment right now. I'm looking at the moment that we have. If you can get a handful of Democratic senators in line, that we can make historic changes for our kids. We can make historic changes for the future of this country. There's opportunity here. And yet the moneyed interests, they're doing everything in their power to divide us. And the sad thing is, they're winning. It's working. Because there's so much going into their messaging. And they've been in full spin mode for a while now. But it always comes back to the working people. Because in every one of those things, those emails I got today, the thing that they finished up on was, they're going to pass something called the PRO Act. And the PRO Act is either racist or misogynist or whatever. Because, the ABC test. We've taken women from exploitive employment jobs and we've put them into exploitive, you're on your own jobs, and called them their own boss. And by saying, no, we want you to get better wages, hours, conditions, somehow that's misogynistic. As my grandfather always said, if there was going to make something better for you, do you think they'd really let you do it? And the answer is no. So for me, anytime I see these, I immediately recoil, and I think that's the reaction for most folks. I'm going to take a quick break here. When we come back and talk a little bit about people who have had enough. Quick break, right back after this.